Hey everyone, this is Alfred's Basic Adult Piano Course, Lesson Book Level 1. This video is Lesson 19, which covers page 24 in our book. New time signature and dotted half note. So the new time signature we're going to learn is 3/4. You've already learned 4/4, and as a review, 4/4 means that there are 4 beats per measure. The top 4 tells us this. And the bottom 4 tells us that a quarter note gets 1 beat. So in 3/4 time signature, the only thing that's different is the 3, which means that every measure now gets a total of 3 beats. The 4 is still the same at the bottom, which means a quarter note still gets 1 beat. Dotted half note is a new rhythm we're going to learn, which gets a total of 3 counts. So if you look in the pink box on the top right of page 24, you can see what a dotted half note looks like. It's literally a half note with a dot to the right of it. And always make sure that the dot is to the right of the note. If the dot is above or below the note, that means something different. That actually means staccato, which is something different in music. But if it's a half note with a dot to the right, it's a dotted half note, which gets 3 counts. Now you can memorize that it gets 3 counts, or the way it actually works is, a half note gets 2 counts. Well, the dot next to a note means that the dot gets half the value of the note that it's next to. So half the value of 2 is 1. So in this case, the dot gets 1 count. A half note is 2 counts, add them together, and you get 3 counts. Why is this good to know? Because in the future, when you see a dotted quarter note, if you don't know how many counts it gets, refer to the rule I just told you. A quarter note gets 1 count, and the dot, in this case, gets half the value of that quarter note. So half of 1 is a half, add them together, 1.5. So a dotted quarter note gets 1.5 beats. But for now, as long as you learn a dotted half note gets 3 counts, you're good to go. So underneath these pink boxes, it says clap or tap the following rhythm. Clap once for each note counting aloud. So in this exercise, you can see we have a 3/4 time signature. So every measure adds up to 3 counts. So we're going to count every measure 1, 2, 3. All right, you ready to go? And notice the second and fourth measure have our dotted half note. So we're going to hold that as we count 3. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And of course, you'll repeat it because of the repeat sign at the end. Once you get comfortable with that, move on down to our song called Rockets, which you'll notice is in 3/4 time. We do have a couple of dotted half notes in the third measure of the first line in the bass clef. There's a G7 chord that we're going to play and hold for 3 counts. And if you look at the bottom line, third measure, the same thing, another G7 chord in the bass for 3 counts. In fact, if you look at the first line and the second line of music, I'll go ahead and give you a hint. Or actually, it won't even be a hint. I'll go ahead and tell you. It's the exact same material played twice, with 2 exceptions. Dynamics being the first exception. Notice the first line is marked F, which is forte, loud. The second line is marked piano, which is soft. So your first line is loud, second line is soft. The second thing that's different is look at the end of each line. The end of the first line, your C chord lasts for 2 counts, half note. And then you have a quarter rest in both hands on beat 3. But the final measure of the piece is a C chord dotted half note for 3 counts. So you're going to hold that chord a little bit longer. All right, we're going to go ahead and look at the hands together because the hands kind of follow each other in these first 2 measures, meaning this. The first 3 notes in your bass clef, left hand, are C. Notice it goes to E. We have a skip and another skip to G. C, E, G. That is a broken C chord. all quarter notes. Now, if you look at the right hand second measure, it's the same thing. C, skip to E, skip to G. So the first two measures are broken C chords in both hands, and let's go ahead and play them together. You've also just learned the first two measures of the second line, because it's the same exact thing, a broken C chord in both hands. It'll just be softer. Let's look at the third measure now in the first line. We already said the left hand is playing a G7 chord. You just finished playing a G in the previous measure with your pinky on the right hand. It's going to go down one note to F. On beat 1, both hands are together. Beat 2 is E in the right hand. Beat 3 is D. And then both hands, C chord left hand, middle C right hand. In our final measure for 2 counts, and then we're off on beat 3. So let's go through and play that entire first line with the count off. 1, 2, 3. Now the next line is the exact same thing, just played quietly. And the last chord on the end, we will hold out for 3 counts. So here we go, 1, 2, 3. And that's basically it for Rockets. So it's pretty easy. So at the bottom of the piece, where it says important, here are some options to make the piece a little more interesting. It says play Rockets again, playing the second line 1 octave, which means 8 notes higher. So the second line, let's see, the rest at the end of the first line, give you time to move your hands to the new position. Okay. So what they're saying is, repeat the piece, basically. You're going to play the first line again as written. They're saying this rest on beat 3 gives you time to move both hands 1 octave higher. So they're saying the bottom line, which is the second line, play both hands 1 octave higher. And that's what it sounds like. So what that means, 1 octave higher, is the C position that your left hand is in is going to come up 8 notes higher. So take your pinky on C and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you're basically putting your left hand where your right hand was. The right hand also comes up an octave higher. So your thumb in the right hand is now on this C. So you're basically moving from this position to this position, and that's what 1 octave higher means. And then you read the notes in the same manner, and it'll all sound the same. It's just a higher sound. Same pitches, but we call that an octave higher. Then it says play Rockets one more time, now with the first line 1 octave higher than written, and the second line 2 octaves higher. So what that means is starting the first line already an octave higher up here. Then move your right hand and left hand another octave higher. So for the second line, we're actually up here, 2 octaves higher than what's written. So here's your pinky, fifth finger, pinky on C in the left hand. You were down on this C originally, that's what's written. But 2 octaves higher would mean 1 octave, that C, 2 octaves, this C. Here's your right hand. Still sounds the same, but just, again, higher pitches. And it says this is excellent training in moving freely over the keyboard. So honestly, you could play this piece in a variety of ways, in a variety of octaves. You could play it down here on this C and this C. It'd be a very interesting sound. I would not recommend it because these chords down here sound terrible. Usually you want the chords to be about this position on the keyboard and higher. So if you want to play it way up here, it'd be just fine. Sounds much cleaner. You can also spread the hands out. You can left hand down here, right hand here. Not very musical, but certainly doable. So experiment with it. Have fun playing in the variety of octaves.